Okay, so landings and stairs where the stringers connect them are often the first thing that goes bad. And there's a reason why. Typically, they're just not done very well. People just screw through the back or toenail into there. And that's fine for temporary hold while you get better fastening in place, but it's not good enough. So let's look at some details for a strong, solid landing and stringer connection that's not going to fail, because that typically fails first on a deck. Then go railings, then go deck boards, but this is usually the first thing to fail. Often gets replaced multiple times during the life of the deck. All right, so you'll notice here we've got hardware on every single stringer. We're gonna put one here in a minute, just like this. So these are heavy duty corners. They're made to hold a pretty significant load. And then also you notice that we have a doubled header here where the stringers connect. And so one of those is connected to this above, which ties into our main rim joist, and then is actually notched into this post going all the way down. Okay, so it's got significant load bearing on it. And then this one, setting down from it, is tied into the main beam of the deck over here. And then it's also tied with really heavy duty lag screws into this post. But then, just to make sure they work together, we actually hang this bottom header from the top portion there with heavy duty tie plates. There's tons of screws, and these are 2.5-inch screws, so they go not just the first piece, but partially into the second piece. And so a really robust header that isn't gonna shift, isn't gonna move, is the first step. All right, second step, we're gonna go down here. It's sort of what I call a kicker. Other people have different names for it, but this needs to be solid, right? It's tied into your actual concrete here. No matter what, you've got to have some landing to tie this to. And so it's got a 3/8 inch by 5-inch long Tapcon bolt in the middle, and a couple of 4-inch long Tapcons on the edges. So that thing cannot shift. It's solid. It's not going to move up and down. It's not going to move in and out. Because often what happens is these stairs sag because they slide out here, which sort of pulls the whole frame and causes everything to go out of whack. And so those 2 points are not going to fail on this deck. And then again, the third thing is what I sort of pointed out initially, was the hardware for the actual stringer. So for these outer ones, either you've got to find some way to cut this back and tie it into the side with through screws, or you can use something like this. Sometimes they'll even double the outside stringer, not in this case. But for the middle ones, I use these rafter hangers, and so they can skew to pretty much any slope, and they've got a ton of holding power. This thing's not gonna fall out. It's not gonna break from cracking and then fall out of place. And so I put those in all the middle ones. We're gonna put one more middle one in here. And so that's the third thing or fourth thing I want to point out, is that we have 4 stringers now. We're gonna have 5. This isn't that wide of a run, but you've got to think of these stringers just like joists on a deck. Often people will put 2 or 3 stringers for like a 48-inch wide stair. That's just not enough. These are basically 12 inches on center. You have to have at least 16 inches on center if you want to actually properly support your steps and keep them from bouncing, and that bouncing causes cracking and stress and strain over time. You got to think of them like joists, but even more so, maybe even like rafters, but with a live load on them all the time. And so often I space them even closer than 16 inches on center because they're cut pretty thin. This is the only load-bearing part. These get set on by the boards, but they don't actually provide any of that resistance to bending or to bowing. It's just this basically 2x6 material left out of the 2x12. And so you have to account for the fact that they're pretty thin now. And so you have to space them closely enough that they're going to support that load and not get broken over time just from all of that up and down movement from people running up and down the steps. And so those are important aspects. The last thing I'll point out is we're going to put joist tape on here and here before we put our treads and our risers on. And the reason being, these are open Endgrain, right? They're going to suck in tons of moisture over time, which causes them again to crack, to rot. And so these are more prone than, say, the top of a joist, because the top of a joist is long grain. Basically what you've got down here, which doesn't suck in water as much. But these are cut into the middle of the board, and they're open pores, and so they're going to suck in water. If you don't tape those off or seal those somehow, you're going to get issues real fast. So those are some key details for strong steps that are going to last as long as your deck.